Welcome back to the Sunday morning EV showcase. I got quite the lineup for you guys today. Now, if you're new to the channel, I do this every Sunday. I break down the most interesting, at least for me, articles regarding EVs throughout the week. I compile them all on Sunday morning and we kind of do a podcast style sort of breakdown of these articles, and good, bad, and different for the EV industry. I talk about it all. It's so much fun. So we're talking about EV growth in 2023, the big winners and losers. We're going to talk about Volkswagen Scout motors. This is actually the most exciting thing for me to talk about today because we have information now on their truck and SUV electric pickup truck. We're talking about price gouging on EV9, Stellantis and fake vibration, Ford's complete switch from huge EVs to small EVs. This is so much stuff we have to talk about today. So make sure you grab your snacks and drinks, buckle in, and let's get into it. If you guys enjoyed this sort of content, make sure to smash the like button, and you don't want to miss next week's coverage as well. I'm sure we're going to have all sorts of nice goodies lined up. Make sure to hit the bell icon after you subscribe. So Tesla, Ford, Chevy suffered December EV slowdown, but registrations grew 23%. How can that be? Well, it just means they weren't at 40% growth like maybe they were at some points last year. Electric vehicles captured nearly 9% of the light vehicle registrations in December. Tesla's 11% rise in full EV registrations lagged the segment and the broader light vehicle market, which the light vehicle market rose 15% in December compared to the same month a year earlier. Ford EV registrations grew 13%. So you could say Ford is growing more than Tesla at this point. Chevy fell 26%. Why? Because their best EV, the Bolt, the most affordable EV, one of the most affordable EVs anyways, on the market is no longer being sold. Leave it to Chevy to kill something that people really like the old Volt, the plug-in hybrid, right? Supposedly they're bringing that back, and supposedly they're bringing the Bolt back as well. I don't know if they're going to bring the Volt back as we know it, but Chevy said they're doubling down again on hybrids and plug-in hybrids. If you missed last week's rundown, make sure to watch that because we mentioned what Chevy's doing with their EV shift more towards hybrids and plug-in hybrids in the near future. New EV registrations grew 52% last year over 2022. All right, so let's get into the list of the brands. Which ones are doing best? Of course, Tesla is still running away with this thing. You could say no one really, in general, people are not that interested outside of Tesla. Everyone else outside of Tesla with their EVs is a niche. Tesla is still the main show in town. Everything else is kind of like a knockoff. And that's just the way it's going to be for a long time. Ford only has about 10% of the total sales as Tesla. It's absolutely mind-blowing. And Ford's number 2. Chevy right behind them, around 10% of Tesla's sales as well. I thought Hyundai would be higher than this. You know, they have the Ioniq 6 now. Alongside the Ioniq 5, they have the electric Kona. And I might be missing something, but that is really not that much volume. Rivian, upstart Rivian. The rest of these, right, are mostly like traditional OEMs. So Rivian actually getting their slice of the pie in the top 5, right? People want something different, and Rivian's the closest thing to Tesla that's not Tesla. BMW is doing extremely well with their introduction of EVs. They have a ton of EVs in their lineup. Mercedes-Benz, they have a lot of EVs in their lineup too, but they're not as desirable as BMWs. In fact, they sit a lot longer on the lots than BMW's electric vehicles. Volkswagen as well. Now, the ID4 is built in the United States, but I think it might only qualify as a partial EV tax credit because of its battery sourcing materials. So Volkswagen, only 37,000. Kia, again, this is surprising as well. You would think Kia would be closer to Hyundai, but Kia just has one EV on the market in 2023, maybe some EV9s, which we'll talk about EV9 a little bit today, but EV9 won't have a full sale on the US market until the full 2024 year is over. Audi, isn't this funny? Audi was one of the first EV movers outside of Tesla in the United States, and their e-tron lineup is not even coming close. They're at roughly half the sales of traditional rival BMW. That is astounding. But I've driven Audi's electric vehicles and I'm not impressed by them. But I haven't driven the e-tron RS. I heard that's absolutely amazing, but it's essentially a cheap or poor man's Porsche Taycan, right? But the Q8 e-tron, a lot of money, not impressed with it. I would rather have a lot of other electric vehicles over that. Nissan with the Aria, and there's good incentives on the Aria right now, but it does not qualify for the EV tax credit unless you lease it. You also have the Nissan Leaf, which is on it's on borrowed time. That thing should have been discontinued a long time ago. It feels like an EV. Well, it is an EV that's like a decade old at this point, and that means it's absolutely wretchedly ancient because of how fast EV technology has been moving. Now, the new Leaf is supposed to be made in Great Britain. That doesn't bode well for Nissan. I don't even know if they will sell the next gen Leaf here. I would assume they would, but gosh, Nissan is in a lot of trouble with profits right now. Volvo, hey, I'm getting an XC60 recharge this week, so make sure to stay tuned for that. But I also love the XC40 recharge, the fully battery electric. That is one of my favorite EVs still. I love the design of the XC40, and then they just make it a battery electric, give it 400 horsepower, and you're just smiling ear to ear. It's a great city EV, but it doesn't have a lot of range. So that's the biggest downfall of that XC40. And the C40 can't recommend because you can't even see out the rear window and you don't have a digital rear view mirror. Toyota selling only 9,000 BZ4Xs. And I want to bring up a Toyota article for you guys today. And I don't think this is just hitting Toyota. No, inside EVs and a lot of these EV only outlets really like to dog on Toyota, call them an EV laggard, whatever you want to call them. You know, Toyota still plans on selling 3.5 million by 2030, but a lot of these people say, hey, we've been lied to by Toyota before. We're not going to believe their EV production until we actually see it. Regardless, I don't feel like this article paints an accurate picture on the BZ4X. Accurate, yes, and that it's depreciating as much as they're saying. 5,000 miles in the odometer, it's down to $32,000. I don't think they're also showing other electric vehicles in the market that are depreciating a lot as well. You know, they talk about the RAV4 Prime and how that barely depreciates. We know the BZ4X's limitation in charging and range. You don't buy it for a road trip EV. You have your Toyota hybrid or plug-in hybrid alongside of it, or just your normal Toyota ICE car as well. The BZ4X is a fantastic city vehicle, and you have to know its limitations before you ever step into any EV, especially the BZ4X. They mentioned the RZ not holding its value either, which again, Lexus is like, hey, we're coming out with a second gen EV platform in 2026. So it really is no surprise to me that their value is dropping so fast, but they don't mention the value of any other manufacturer other than Toyota's own hybrids in terms of, let's say, residual value or depreciation. So anyways, I just thought I just wanted to bring that up, mentioning Toyota. And of course, Subaru is going to be affected in that because it's essentially a Toyota made in the same plant in Motomachi in Japan. Cadillac, you know, also very interesting that Cadillac isn't selling that many EVs, but we know General Motors had really big struggles with their Ultium platform and scaling up production. Polestar is struggling a lot. They're laying off, I think, 15% of their employees. Not looking good for Polestar. They've been hampered as well by the delay of their Polestar 3 vehicle. I don't know how much longer Polestar is going to be around. I don't know how successful they'll be in North America. I'd rather just have a Volvo electric vehicle, to be honest, because their styling is so similar as well. And Volvo just pulled the funding out of Polestar. If you missed, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we talked about that. So it's only owned and funded by Geely at this point. Porsche, well, would they have the Macan coming this year, fully electric Macan, that will really ramp up volume. Lucid, they're kind of struggling as well, but they have Saudi money backing them. So, you know, they have the Gravity coming out sometime in the next year or so, and I think that will help sales. Genesis, actually some of the best EVs I've driven are Genesis EVs. I just drove the GV60 fairly recently. I would rather just get an Ioniq 5. It feels super similar. It's just the performance variant of the GV60 is ridiculously fast. I love also the GV70 electric. It's like, you know, it's kind of like the RZ, really, really good luxury car. It just offers more performance than the Lexus RZ, but like the RZ, it does not have good range. However, Genesis has a 100-volt charging architecture, which it counts for something, right? Even though your range is limited. Speaking of Lexus, they're right there below Genesis. Lexus just has one electric vehicle while Genesis has three. Well, yeah, many in there. If you missed last week, Fisker is struggling a lot with software and bugs in their vehicle right now. VinFast, they're not long for this world, in my opinion. I don't think they're ever going to get off the ground, essentially, in North America. Mazda in here with the discontinued MX-30. And we knew that vehicle would be a flop with just 100 miles of range. And for what it was priced at, it needed to be like $15,000, $20,000. And it was priced at like $35,000, $40,000, something like that. It was ridiculous. All right, we need to keep moving. Scout Motors wants to put the mechanical back into electric trucks. I mean, that's just them trying to appeal to truck people who don't want to give up the truck feeling, I guess. But this is a very interesting article. I won't be able to talk about the whole thing because I could make a dedicated video just on this. All right, so if you want to go back in time, International Harvester kind of came out with the first kind of Bronco-like vehicle back in 1961. Production stopped in 1980, and then Volkswagen bought Navistar International in 2020. Navistar was created in 1985 when International Harvester, the original creator of the Scout, went out of business. So there you have it. That's how Volkswagen can use the Scout nameplate. Now, for me, I was born in 89, so the Scout nameplate meant nothing to me. Actually, I don't know if I've ever seen one in my life. So they're pulling a big nostalgia card here, but a lot of people don't know anything about the Scout, but it is fun. At least we're learning about American car history here with the Scout and the reintroduction of it in a new era of electrification. At full capacity at their plant in Columbia, South Carolina, they want to produce more than 200,000 vehicles annually. And since it's its own EV company, they can sell directly to consumer. That's what Volkswagen wishes they could do in North America, but unfortunately they can't. There's no way they can get around selling their cars without the dealer involved. And so here they have Scout, kind of a sidestep with their EV pickup trucks and EV SUVs. Scout is revealing its pickup truck later this year, apparently, so stay tuned for that. They're saying it could be at the Detroit Auto Show happening this summer, and an SUV will follow 6 months later. Expect the SUV to look pretty identical, just with a topper on it, essentially. Almost, if you guys missed my video yesterday, almost like how the 4Runner is like just an SUV version of the Tacoma. That's what it should be like, more than likely. We'll get a review of the new 4Runner soon. 4Runner will not be going fully electric, though, like this Scout. And like the original Scout, the overhangs are going to be super tight outside of the wheelbase, and they are going to keep the fold-down front windshield, as well as how it connects to the C-pillar. Lots of old graphics, and they're actually retaining the original logo. We're actually going to have real door handles instead of door handles that are hidden or sucked into the body. Now, this article doesn't mention it, but they will be using real buttons and knobs for interacting with the climate control and probably the radio at that point as well. So that's a beautiful thing. We're going to move on. Kia dealers are already gouging away on EV9 electric SUV prices. Now, Kia did not want them to mark up the prices because it makes them look bad, but you have $5,000 up to $7,000 markups on this. Now, they might get a few of those initial buyers, early adopters. Some of them aren't very smart, or they just have absorbent amounts of money to get, an EV9 before everyone else. No, when the EV9 came out in Korea last year, they were piling up on lots, heavily discounting them, and that was making the original upfront buyers who paid full price really pissed off, because now their vehicle's worth a lot less money. But Kia has to take care of number one. They have to make sure they're not producing too much, keeping too much inventory on their lots, and they have to be competitive as well. And they kept reducing prices on their EV9 in Korea. Will that happen in the United States? Probably not, unless more competition comes in the three-row electric landscape. What is the competition to the EV9 right now? An electric three-row. The R1S, which is more expensive than this. There's just, right off the top of my head, there's just not a lot out there. The BZ5X will come out next year from Toyota to give this vehicle competition. But in the meantime, this has about 2 years on the market to itself on the mainstream market. So we could see markups for quite some time here on the EV9, and one markup is as high as nearly $9,000. Let me know if you think, and I haven't driven the EV9 yet, so I can't talk about it, but the EV6 is really good, and I honestly would probably like driving my kids around school, to school, doing errands in the EV9. I'm sure I'd like it because I know how good Hyundai and Kia's eGMP architecture really is. But all right, we're going to keep moving. Stellantis is using a patented vibration system to stimulate, or to simulate, well, definitely stimulate its drivers, but to simulate an ICE vehicle for electric vehicles. I think this is interesting. I'm not going to knock it too much, but they have patents on a vibration system, so you can feel the rumble of a Hemi artificially. I mean, I know that they're also having artificial EV noises to make it sound like a electrified muscle car. Yeah, I don't know. You know, Lexus is working on a manual transmission for electric vehicles. That sounds cool as well. I don't know about vibrations though. Let me know down below if you want those good vibes coming through your seat. Ford turning the page into a new era of EVs. Their F-150 Lightning and their Mach-E is just like losing billions of dollars per year. However, Jim Farley is saying smaller, more profitable EVs are non-negotiable, and things have changed a lot. He says it's non-negotiable that we're going to allocate capital to new affordable electric vehicle. You have to make money in the first 12 months. And I don't want that bullcrap roadmap. I want a real plan, and if you can't execute that plan, we ain't launching the car. If you want a vehicle larger than an Escape, that's also an EV, he says it must be really functional or a work vehicle, which that's kind of one and the same in my opinion, unless it's like a really functional people mover. But if you do the economics for a vehicle, let's say the Escape or smaller, it's totally different and it completely works. In fact, it's dramatically better operating cost than a Corolla or Civic or even Maverick. Ford, you're telling me you're losing billions of dollars on EVs, but you're saying if you make a small, affordable EV, you have higher profit margins than a Corolla, a Civic, or a Maverick? I will wait to believe that until I see it. Ford expects to lose $5 billion and $5.5 billion this year on EVs. Ford wants a smaller EV and a cheaper EV to compete with Chinese automakers. If you missed it this past week, switching to this article just for a brief second, BYD is wanting to open up an assembly plant in Mexico, and that would help them qualify for EV tax credits, help them avoid the Chinese import tax as well. So this could really screw up the market here. So Ford's sweating bullets on that news. If you cannot compete fair and square with the Chinese around the world, then 20 to 30% of your revenue is at risk. Well, he's saying the addressable EV market in the near future is EVs, right? Right now, we mentioned it's about 7-8% of the current market, but at the end of this decade, it's going to be much higher. How high? We'll wait to see, right? You know, we mentioned Mercedes at the beginning of this video. Their EVs are not selling that fast. They're kind of sitting around on lots, and they're moving away from the ugliest crap egg-shaped EVs, dropping the EQ naming. And this, I'm glad they're doing it. Like, I don't know in what world this is an attractive car. Let me know down below if you find any of their EQ vehicles to be attractive. I mean, most Mercedes vehicles in general to me are not very handsome. AMG GT, some of their GT coupes, stuff like that are really cool, but most of them are not very attractive vehicles. You know, they do have pictures here of the concept CLA, which is going to be a much more affordable EV for them in the future. I think this is actually a pretty handsome EV, right? Longer hood proportions, if we just go back, longer hood. I mean, it's still a very smooth looking vehicle, but like this window line is just disgusting in my opinion. Honestly though, I still don't think this is a home run of a design. This grille area is ugly. The headlight light bar area looks cheap to me. The rear end looks a little Mazda, a little MX-5 in some ways, but it still doesn't look fantastic from any angle, but its proportions are at least better than this monstrosity. So we don't know when they'll be switching over to this new series of vehicles that don't have the EQ naming and it can't come soon enough for them. I'm running out of steam here, but I got to mention this. I mentioned last week that Panasonic has struck a deal with an Australian mining company, or a chemicals company, I should say, to secure like 10,000 tons of synthetic graphite for the anodes on their batteries here in North America. But we have new deals going on for mined graphite in North America as well. General Motors said on February 15th, has entered into an agreement with Canadian miner to receive 18,000 metric tons of active anode material, mostly that of graphite. SK On, whose customers Ford, Hyundai, Volkswagen have entered an agreement with Colorado graphite producer Westwater Resource to receive 34,000 tons of the material. Now, this is super important because China has a stranglehold, like 90% of battery grade graphite on the market, and they get to pick and choose their rates, pick and choose who they sell it to. Now, that just isn't going to fly for the EV tax credit in North America because our batteries can't have materials that are sourced from entities of concern like Iran, North Korea, Russia, and China. Now, interestingly, it seems like Panasonic is one of the few wanting to nail down synthetic graphite. That Australian Novonix company is producing graphite from their Chattanooga plant starting in late 2024. About 77% of the graphite used in EV batteries comes from synthetic sources. However, natural graphite requires less energy to be processed and as a result has a lower carbon footprint and cost of production. But synthetic graphite takes typically up to 30 days and requires extremely high temperature furnaces, resulting in high energy consumption and carbon emissions. However, Novonix has said they developed a system that can cut production down to 3 days, and natural graphite is extracted from the ground containing impurities and irregular crystal structures that result in poor performance, especially when it comes to durability and life cycle. That's why Panasonic's not interested in the natural stuff. They want the super refined, pure, fake stuff that they can get to give them the best edge on batteries. Now, it's probably going to cost more, of course, but they're willing to pay the extra price for the good stuff. But that's all I have for you guys today. What do you think about the market and Tesla's just stranglehold of the market here in the United States? Now, their market share is dropping year over year. That doesn't mean their sales volume is dropping. In fact, it grew like 25% last year, if I remember correctly, even though they had some slowing months at the end of the year, especially in California. But they're still going to keep growing. But these bars from all the other manufacturers, in theory, will get just a little bit higher as they introduce more models, as they are able to commit to higher production capacity. But the EV market still is a little bit unsure with it slowing. We know that Ford cut F-150 production down to just one assembly line after having 3 assembly lines up and running. It will be interesting, and we know that Tesla's profits seemingly are an all-time low due to them having to cut prices to keep demand high. So definitely stay tuned. I will keep bringing you guys EV news updates every Sunday morning. I said I was going to do this for you guys, and if you like this content every Sunday morning, make sure to let me know down below. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you next Sunday morning as long as you guys find interest in this series. Have a good one. Stay safe. Stay warm. I don't know what temperatures are around north of Florida, but it's kind of chilly down here. It's like a rainy and 65 degrees in South Florida today. I know you guys would kill for weather like that in other parts of the country, but I don't know. I got to cut myself off. Have a good day and peace out.